Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and I want to talk about the Cage of Sanctuary. We're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. Warning, there is spoilers for Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves in this content, okay? I'll give a second there. Let's go. All right. So let's talk about the Cage of Sanctuary in the movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. So first of all, I'd say this real quick. There's a lot of people. Oh, here you go. Ben Burns from Ben Burns was on. He is on the Ghostfire Games podcast, and actually he works for Ghostfire Games, and to my knowledge, and he said that Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is as deep as a puddle, right? But the reality is, I think the reality is, he's a young man and he's not thinking deeply, and I think his analysis of this film was as deep as a puddle, right? Like he really did. A lot of people think this isn't a deep film, and that is shockingly wrong. There's so many layers to this film, and one good thing is I'm convinced that is going to be carefully unpacked for a century. This film is going to be around 100 years from now. And we're going to be still unpacking the meaning of the things set in this film. It's incredibly deep, right? And one of the deepest subjects in Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is the Cage of Sanctuary. So what is the Cage of Sanctuary? In my humble opinion, the Cage of Sanctuary... Oh, let me tell you what it is literally, and then I'll tell you what it is at meta, okay? All right. Literally, in the film, The Cage of Sanctuary is when, in the High Sun games, so the player characters, Edgin, Holga, Doric, and Simon, okay, they reach Neverwinter, the city of Neverwinter, and they are put into the High Sun games, okay. And the way the High Sun games are structured is that there's these huge blocks of stone that are dropped in and out, right? In the arena, right? And the stones are large enough to kill people, right? To crush them to death, right? So the point is, there's actually 5 different rounds in the High Sun games, and the way you advance from round to round is you make it to the Cage of Sanctuary. You run through the maze and make it to the Cage of Sanctuary. And guess what? Guess who makes it to the Cage of Sanctuary, right? After the first round, okay? After the first round of the Cage of Sanctuary, the group that makes it is the 1983 Dungeons & Dragons cartoon characters, Bobby and Sheila, Hank and Eric, Presto and Diana, and Uni, okay? And so this is like, it's a really big deal, right? What's happening. And so they get to the Cage of Sanctuary, and then Edgin and Doric and Simon and Holga, Simon and Doric, they actually reach the Cage of Sanctuary, and Edgin pulls the door open, and he's going to hold it I'm sorry. So I'm returning from seeing the movie for the 4th time right now, right? And it chokes me up. I laugh more and I cry more every time I see this film. It is a powerful, meaningful film, and it's a little bit meaningful to me because Edgin gets to a point where he is. So they're in the arena, and they get to the Cage of Sanctuary, and the 1983 cartoon characters are already in there, right? They're already in there, okay? And then Edgin goes to open the door, and get this, Edgin goes to open the door and pull, and he doesn't grab the door and like bolt in, right? He goes to grab the door, and he's gonna hold it for everybody, right? For Simon, he's gonna hold it for Holga, for Simon and Doric, and he's gonna go in last, right? And it's really deep. Like, he really cares for his team, right? He's a true leader, and it is meaning. It's powerful, right? Like, I have been incredibly blessed to serve under incredibly caring and thoughtful and intelligent leaders, and I can tell you it's a privilege, right? And it was it just touched me that Egan was going to hold the cage of sanctuary door open for his people, but so he starts to open it, and then he pushes it back, and he goes, no, and he's like, if we go into this cage of sanctuary, we just advance to the next round, right? This isn't the path out. We can't go into the cage of sanctuary. It's not going to free us, right? And this is why he's the leader, right? Like, he doesn't fight well, right? He doesn't have any magical abilities. He doesn't cast literally a single spell in the entire film. All he does is strum a lute, right? But he's the most powerful adventurer they have, and he is their leader. He leads them, right? It's incredibly powerful. And thanks for your patience. Me kind of getting a little choked up there. All right. So basically, the cage of sanctuary. What is it? All right. I've told you what it literally is in the film. Okay. What is it? Meta. Right? What is the true meaning? In my humble opinion, just in my humble opinion, what the Cage of Sanctuary is Dungeons and Dragons. All right, bear with me here. All right, so I have an incredibly unique view of Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think Dungeons and Dragons is a game. I don't think it was a game on day one in 1974 when Gary Gygax released it, and I don't think it's a game now in day now, right? Being built by an incredibly intelligent, charismatic, and confident team of designers in Renton, Washington. All right, so let's get all the way there on this. Okay, I don't think it's a game. I think that Dungeons and Dragons is the most powerful secular bridge to identity, narrative, and language that's ever been created by any artist, any creator in humanity's history, right? I think humans have a unique, unlike any other beings anywhere, we have a unique relationship to identity, narrative, and language. It is what makes us what we are, and I think Gary Gygax built a powerful bridge to identity, narrative, and language, more powerful than anything that has ever been created by humanity, and that makes Dungeons and Dragons a tool that can be used to better ourselves. It's not, Dungeons and Dragons is not a game to cut goblins in half. In my humble opinion, Dungeons and Dragons is a tool that we use to cut our own deficiencies in half. I think it was designed as a tool to help humanity by Gary Gygax and hidden as a game. So I have this unique view. I know no one else really kind of buys into this yet, but I believe it in my heart and in my soul. I feel, this is important to me, and I genuinely believe this, right? I believe at this point what I'm saying, others have seen it, right? And it is my strong belief that there are creatives on the Dungeons & Dragons design team that know what I just said. They agree with it. And I think they want to help others see it, okay? Now, I'm not saying for a minute that everyone on the design team, right? I'm saying there's a number between 1 and 5, right? There's no less than 1, in my humble opinion, and no more than 5 people on the D&D design team, right? And what do I mean by D&D design people? The people who work on the Dungeons and Dragons canon hardbacks, okay? I think they see I think that 1 to 5 people on that design team know, like, believe what I believe, right? That D&D is more than a game, okay? And I think the Cage of Sanctuary is a blacklight that was put in, that was specifically put in the movie by the D&D design team, by a member of the D&D, by 1 or more members of the D&D design team, to highlight Gary's secret, as I defined it in my humble opinion, right? That it was never a game, it was always a tool. right? So I think that the Cage of Sanctuary is a blacklight sitting in the middle of the movie from a Gary Gygax ally today who's highlighting for people who are seeking to understand Dungeons & Dragons at a deeper level and to interact with Dungeons & Dragons as a tool and not a game. And so what they were saying is, and you're saying, well, how could that have gotten into the movie? Well, just to be clear, just so you're aware, it's already public record. Daly and Goldstein, who directed the film, actually sat down with the design team. They worked very closely with them over a matter of years, right? And so the opportunity to put this black light, to shine the light on Gary's secret, in my humble opinion, was absolutely there, right? And so basically, the Cage of Sanctuary is a black light to shine on Gary's, in my humble opinion, secret, right? That D&D was always a tool and never a game, right? And so basically, they're saying that, yes, like, dungeon masters and players are going to interact with Dungeons & Dragons like it's the arena, right? And they're going to get into the Cage of Sanctuary. And that is cut a goblin in half D&D. That's what's being played at 99.9% of all Dungeons & Dragons games, right? Is let's get together, let's cut a goblin in half. There's no meaning here, there's no purpose here. This isn't a tool, it's just a game. And you'll hear thousands of people, and you might see a few hundred people writing my comments saying it's just a game, right? But if you understand what I'm saying about Dungeons & Dragons, things change, right? There's a shift, right? And so I think they're saying D&D, if you play it as a game, is the Cage of Sanctuary. You get in it and you're safe, right? You're safe from and I will admit, I think there's some risk in accepting that D&D. Well, I can tell you right now, there's risk saying that D&D is a tool and not a game. In my humble opinion, it's a tool and not a game, right? And so if you just always embrace it as a game, you're always going to be in the Cage of Sanctuary. You're always going to be safe, but you're not going to go anywhere, right? And if you close the door on the Cage of Sanctuary and you look at Dungeons & Dragons not as a tool, not as a game, but as a tool, in my humble opinion, that's where it starts, right? And you move forward into this far more powerful engagement with Dungeons & Dragons, and you escape the Cage of Sanctuary, right? So I think the Cage of Sanctuary is a black light, right? That's held up to show the fluorescent secret that Gary put into the game, in my humble opinion, in 1974. And that when he delivered it was always a tool and never a game, right? So every single word of this is simply my humble opinion. I could be wrong, right? I'm just telling you what I believe with my heart and what I believe with my soul, right? After having studied Dungeons & Dragons for decades, right? And so it's nothing more than my humble opinion, but in my humble opinion, the Cage of Sanctuary is D&D as a game. And now that you know, do you do with the 1983 D&D cartoon characters, Bobby and Sheila, Eric and Hank, Presto and Diana, do you do what they did and get in the Cage of Sanctuary? Or do you do what Edgin did? Shut the door on the Cage of Sanctuary, take the risk, and engage with Dungeons & Dragons as a tool, in my humble opinion, rather than a game. It's a beautiful path. I'm not going to tell you there isn't risk, but I am going to tell you there is beauty. And there is profound wisdom to be found in Dungeons & Dragons if you will allow it to open your heart, right? And even open your soul. Religion is... Theology is discussed within D&D, right? And even last year, a gentleman that went by the name Professor Dungeon Master last year, talked about Dungeons & Dragons as a religious experience, right? Like, so I really do think there's this because it is such a powerful bridge, a secular bridge, to identity, narrative, and language, there's this massive opportunity if you're willing to shut the door on the cage of sanctuary. Every single word I just said is nothing more than my humble opinion. But I'm hoping you see some value in it, or you see something that you understand in it.